Greetings and welcome to episode 18 of Ending the Sexual Dark Age. I'm JV Altheras, and this is Listener Mail Volume 6. There's been some great BDSM-related feedback as well as some questions since episode 17, but as I mentioned in that show, I'm going to save all that for a couple of weeks and go over it during BDSM Basics Part 2. To jump right in for today's show, Nikki writes, "Just wondering what the appeal is with dudes blowing their loads in our faces." Well, there are a couple angles to this, Nikki. The first is that modern guys have access to modern porn. The cum shot is the money shot in porn, and it's often a big load shot all over the face, ass, belly, back, thigh, or any other patch of flesh big enough to be a target for a squirting willy. This might sound silly, but in porn it's the proof that the sex was real, and it's not going anywhere. There are entire niches of porn focused around cum shots as well, where they're bigger and badder than anything you're likely to see out of a guy who isn't taking nutritional supplements to max out his load. If a guy in porn does come inside the actress, it's almost universally followed up by a cream pie shot of jizz dripping out of her. Porn is entertainment. It's not reflective of how sex usually goes down, but it is what most guys jerk off to, so it has some effect on sexual desires. And cum shots are found in all porn, as opposed to bisexual midget amputee acrobats wearing feathers, for example. Though any bisexual midget acrobat porn you might encounter will have its share of cum shots. So from this angle, the appeal is that it kind of makes the guy feel like a porn star. I've known plenty of women who love taking a load in the face or wherever else because it made them feel kind of like porn stars. And that's a secret fantasy for a lot more women than you might think. Not to be porn stars, just to feel like one for a little while, occasionally with a playmate they trust. The more subtle but related factor is that blowing a load on a woman is a viscerally dominant act for the guy. Some people say demeaning, but I say potato potato. Because demeaning is totally in the eye of the beholder. There's something animalistic about it, like marking your territory, and it can give dominant guys an especial rush. There's plenty of thrill on the other side of that coin for many submissives. All that said, I've also known plenty of women who absolutely wouldn't take a load to the face under any circumstances, and I support that position. I had a playmate who actually liked to feel hot jizz getting sprayed on her anywhere except her face. In the interest of the whole picture, guys have to be considerate of the fact that there's no saving your makeup after a baby batter facial. It's also virtually guaranteed to get in her hair, and that's not coming out without a shower. Women are always thinking about what they have to do after sex as well, and if she has to get dressed and go somewhere, a pearl necklace is not in the cards, and you're being an unreasonable dick if you push the issue. So Nikki, that's the why, but if taking a load to your face is something that really bothers you or is particularly unappealing, feel free to put that one in the hard limits column. There aren't that many guys who would make a big deal about it anyway. Next, we have something posted on the website by ATXMI. She says, "In regards to shaving, I decided a few months ago to get laser hair removal. Not a Brazilian, but an extended bikini, which includes hair removal for full labia and wherever else I wanted in that area, but not a full front. I was told to shave exactly how I wanted the hair removed. The salon followed my exact lines. I am 3 treatments in with 3 more to go, and we love it. My pussy lips are so silky smooth they feel freshly shaved every day, with no shaving and no irritation. I should have done this years ago. Of course, my boyfriend does a full visual, digital, and oral inspection when I come back from the day spa, regularly after that to track progress. After each treatment, there's less hair and what is left is growing much more slowly. For ladies who are still shaving, try using gentle hair conditioner instead of soap. It's slicker and doesn't burn like shaving cream." I've honestly never really considered laser hair removal because I always just kind of considered it a high-end thing, but I would imagine if you can deal with the healing time, which is supposedly very, very brief, it's probably a great long-term option if you can afford it. After doing a little bit of research online, I'm still kind of vague on what it would actually cost, so I would be happy to hear any feedback or experience from any of you guys on your experiences with laser hair removal and what you might have paid for it. I could probably get over the irrational hesitation at having some guy shooting lasers at my balls. I probably could. This is too much science fiction as a child. You want to point that laser where? As another note on shaving, a listener sent me an article found on a women's health blog entitled, "Are Vaginas Troublesome for Girls with Body Image Issues?" Overall, it was a good article, except that the writer claims that shaved pussies were once only seen in adult entertainment. If you're only looking back a few decades, that's a true statement. But managing the South Lawn has been a popular custom in many cultures at many times going way back in history. One central point of the article is that once you're shaving things clean, some women start feeling self-conscious about the appearance of Miss Baldy. Some going so far as to have plastic surgery known as labia reconstruction or labiaplasty. Doesn't that sound like fun? As I've mentioned before, my position on plastic surgery is that as long as you don't get too carried away, if you're not doing it for someone else, there's nothing wrong with it. Still, like rack size, it can be especially easy for women to be overly conscious about things that men don't really focus on. So girls, by and large, once we get between your legs, we're happy to have been invited in the first place, and the size of your pussy lips doesn't have any notable impact on our attraction to you. And you can especially take it from me on this. Besides sharing my personal opinion, I spent years working bachelor parties with totally nude dancers. The guys could see their pussies before they ever said hello. And I assure you that our most popular dancers had a wide range of, shall we call them, labia configurations. If guys, by and large, had any aversion to big pussy lips, I would have seen evidence on the job. Instead, I saw evidence to the contrary. Like I said, we're happy to be invited to work out at the Y in the first place, so unless you start to fly away when a stiff breeze blows between your legs, you've got no reason to obsess over what your lips look like or how big they are. It's not a significant part of the attraction equation for most of us. Next up, Kidder writes, on number 16, you spent a little time talking about dyes leaching from sex toys and the potential dangers that may come from absorption. You do have reasons to be concerned. The science is in, and we found that many toys contain and off-gas toxic molecules. The Coalition Against Toxic Toys has done a lot of work in this arena, and it's worth checking out. Many thanks to Kidder for the referral to CATT. As we surmised in episode 16, any kind of color bleeding out of a toy is an indication that it's made from potentially unsafe material. The Coalition Against Toxic Toys can be found at badvibes.org. Props for the choice of domain names as well. The site is currently under construction, but they've got a smart shopper's guide available in PDF if you're a little creative looking for it. There'll be a link to that flyer in the show notes, but because it is important info that's well summarized, I'm going to share most of it with you guys right here on the show. Amusingly, as their point number 1, CATT recommends the sniff test. Yes, as they say, your sense of smell is the most reliable tool for identifying a potentially dangerous sex toy. If you smell any chemical odors or perfumes, you can assume that these odors are a direct result of a process known as off-gassing, in which myriad unknown chemical compounds are migrating out of the material, usually PVC or polystyrene, and contaminating the air you're breathing. There is concern that these mystery chemicals will also migrate onto your skin and into your body during the course of use. Safe 100% medical-grade silicone toys do not smell because there are no chemicals present to off-gas. Next, be wary of claims that condoms will protect you from toxic toys. If your salesperson or product literature suggests that you always use a condom over your sex toy, beware that this toy is potentially toxic. And in the name of ending the sexual dark age, I will personally add a +1 to that statement. Safe toys are made from 100% medical-grade silicone, high-quality glass, surgical steel, polished stone, or hard plastics including acrylic, and do not require the use of a condom because they can be thoroughly sanitized to prevent the exchange of microscopic organisms, including bacteria, fungi, and viruses that might cause infection. And remember to always sanitize your toy before sharing it. Never take any claims made on sex toy packaging at face value. There is absolutely no truth in advertising or truth in marketing requirement for the sex toy industry. Packaging might say that a toy is made of silicone, doesn't necessarily mean that it is made of silicone. Sex toy manufacturers have gotten way savvy, and you might say tricky, trying to lure customers into purchasing products by falsely labeling them as safe. These toys are clearly labeled as silicone, but contain only trace amounts of silicone and can be riddled with much less savory ingredients. And of course, the key there is the sniff test, if you're in doubt. Also, consider quality claims like hygienically superior to be baseless until you're convinced otherwise by your own good research and common sense. Be on the lookout for confusingly similar spellings of materials that you know are safe. For instance, never confuse silicon with silicone. Having said that, keep in mind that all reputable silicone toy manufacturers do clearly label their products as such. While this is certainly not an exhaustive list, some responsible and safe silicone toy makers include Tanta Silicone, Vixen Creations, Jolly, and Fun Factory. Number 4, be suspicious of space-age, overtly sexual or technical sounding terms for sex toy materials. One way to spot these faux materials is to look for the registered trademark symbol following the material name in question. The term is trademarked. This means it's a trade name and has been registered with the Patent and Trademark Office. If you see the trademark symbol, this may mean that the user claims some exclusive rights of the mark or the word or the name. And no names of actual raw materials will ever be trademarked. They're essentially scientific terms and thus cannot be trademarked. Know that the trademark terms do not necessarily refer to any specific chemical composition. Instead, they're marketing terms used by companies to differentiate and sell particular products without making any specific claims or mention of the actual materials used in the production of the item. This means all those directions about caring for cyber blank or real blank are suspect at best, because these words are nothing more than a product marketing executive's smooth attempt to seduce you into buying their product because it sounds sexier or more technical than the competitors. For example, there is no reliable way to know what a toy that is labeled cyber blank is actually made out of without full disclosure from the manufacturer and/or an independent chemical analysis by a qualified laboratory. Always wonder why a toy is labeled with a fancy name without also disclosing the ingredients. To determine if a toy is safe, you must first determine what it's actually made out of. Toys made from non-toxic, non-porous materials such as 100% medical-grade silicone, polished stone, surgical steel, high-quality solid glass, and hard plastics including acrylic are all safe. You will notice that a trademark symbol is not present following actual ingredients, because you cannot claim intellectual property rights on such words. And that is the end of CATT's Safe Shopping Flyer. And remember, if you'd like to see a copy of it, you can just follow the link in the show notes. I'm going to share a little additional info on metal sex toys as well, because there are things that you need to know that didn't make it into the CATT Flyer. I make crazy high-end contraptions and creations out of metal for a living, and I'm something of an expert in this department. While prepping this show, I did a bit of surfing for metal toys, something I honestly just haven't done for a long time since I make my own. From a health and safety standpoint, I was disappointed with a lot of what I found. Understand that the inside of the human body is a tough neighborhood when it comes to materials. Even piercings can be extremely sensitive, and some people can't wear any that aren't made out of gold or platinum. By and large, our bodily fluids and secretions are corrosive and tend to chemically react with metals, usually producing one unfriendly chemical or another. For example, a fingerprint that's left on a piece of highly polished steel will actually etch itself into the metal as rust, and it'll be a perfect fingerprint in rust. I was actually kind of shocked to find aluminum sex toys on the market. Shocked and appalled, actually, is probably a better way to say it. As a material to be inserted into the human body, aluminum is not in the win column. It doesn't rust like most people imagine rust, but it does corrode. When aluminum oxidizes, it produces a white flaky substance that's basically aluminum's version of rust. Aluminum should never, under any circumstances, be used as a sex toy. If I were king, aluminum toys would be immediately taken off the market. In fact, the only metal that should ever be used for a sex toy is stainless steel. In a perfect world, only surgical-grade stainless. Stainless steel is a member of a family of corrosion-resistant metals called out by different numerical designations. 304 stainless is the garden variety stuff you see everywhere, from counters in restaurant kitchens to the skins on your appliances to the stainless steel that your watch is made out of. 304 is very corrosion-resistant, very common, and in the 300 series, the cheapest. It's good stuff, and it's really, really resistant to reacting with chemicals or anything else. It's what most of the stainless toys out there are made of, but it is not surgical grade. Surgical stainless steel, often just called surgical steel, isn't a type of metal that you can call up and order a bar of. It's a condition that you reach when you start with the right type of stainless, then manufacture your product using a very specific set of guidelines and standards meant for things intended to be surgically implanted. You have to start with grade 316L stainless steel, which is chemically different from the common stuff, one of the most corrosion-resistant metals on Earth and significantly more expensive than regular stainless. I can tell just from pricing that most of the stainless toys out there couldn't possibly be made of this stuff. They just couldn't be. That said, with a 304 stainless toy that's well maintained, you're really not likely to have any issues, but I am a champion of informed consent, full disclosure, and understanding what you're buying. I saw a few toys labeled as surgical stainless offered online, but if they are, then the prices are suspiciously low, because of the processing involved in truly bringing something to surgical grade. On that note, I would like to announce that I just started designing, as a result of this little excursion, a line of insertable toys that will be made of true surgical implant grade materials. After seeing what's out there and what people are getting for regular 304 stainless toys, I'm actually kind of kicking myself for not looking into doing this sooner. I can create some designs unlike anything I see out there right now, and I'll be able to back my toys up with the same documentation required of companies making bone screws and surgical pins. Since I'm talking about toys anyway, I want to spend a moment on proper cleaning and sterilization. It's especially important to thoroughly sterilize toys that are used on more than one person. On the off chance that someone's got a case of the crotch funk, you do not want it getting spread around because of your fuck stick. I've always used rubbing alcohol to clean toys, and I can't imagine anything better. Any bug, bacteria, and virus that can live in rubbing alcohol, well, you might as well just put your hands up and fucking surrender to them anyway. You might want to do a step 1 with a mild soap and then a final rinse with rubbing alcohol if something's particularly messy when you're getting started. This might seem like overkill, but it was how we did things when I worked with the strippers, and nothing nasty got passed around by any of those double-headed dongs that they all used in the lesbian shows. You can never be too careful when it comes to sanitizing toys. And it's never any fun for anyone to have a pussy closed for repairs. If the toy is something for just one person, like a personal vibrator, a little antibacterial hand soap will do the job just fine. Next up, Addie says she stepped on a landmine this week. She writes, I wanted to know your point of view on what happened to me today. After about 20 minutes of unsatisfying head, I was upset because this has become a norm. Almost there, then no dice. I never wanted to say anything because I didn't want to deal with the backlash. I had blurted out, "You aren't making me come, okay?" to my boyfriend. When I went to the bathroom, I was trying to figure out how to say what I had been feeling for the past 18 months. He has a weird work schedule, so I decided to save the fun and games for the weekend. I don't know what happened. I just snapped and got angry because we don't have sex very often. I would be a horrible person to expect it to be 100% all the time, but 25 to 30%, something isn't right. When we do it, it should be pretty decent. It's just not fair. I make it a priority that he gets his, but during the heat of the argument, he called my need for orgasm stupid shit. I felt so hurt because my delivery was raw, but I felt if I don't tell him how I feel, then cheating would be a very viable option. I really care for him, but if me getting an orgasm is stupid shit, then should I just call it quits and move on? It will be 3 years in March. I don't know how to feel. I really wished I had cheated since during almost every argument he accuses me of wanting to break up and cheat. It had crossed my mind several times to get it in with other neighborhood hotties, but to continually be accused of cheating, I feel like I might as well do the crime that I'm always accused of. Now, I asked a few follow-up questions, and she added that they lived together, which is always an added mess in ending a long-term relationship, and that sex with her man was somewhat better before a bunch of drama unfolded with her mom hating the guy. That's something we've probably all been through at one point or another. Eddie also said he has no problem giving her instructions on pleasing him, but gets an attitude every time she makes a request. In closing, she says, I feel like he just wanted me to not say anything about it. I feel like I'm the bad guy. I know I'm wrong for how I went about it, but I don't regret telling him the truth. I would rather be hurt with the truth than be hurt and find out that the one I loved didn't feel comfortable telling me what he wanted sexually, and as a result, found it elsewhere. Sex shouldn't be about one person getting their way and the other one not saying anything. They have devices for that. Well, Addie, I can definitely give you some food for thought here. Overall, it sounds like your man is an unknowing victim of the sexual dark age. A lot of the issues you describe are the direct result of a lack of practical knowledge about good sex and prior understanding of women's needs. You're perfectly justified in questioning your relationship based on him saying your desire to actually climax is stupid shit. And even though it was in the heat of the moment, he wouldn't have said it if there wasn't something going on there. The dogma of the dark age says that sex isn't all that important, and if your sex life is lousy in an otherwise stable relationship, then it's something you should just shut up and deal with. That's bullshit. In fact, I think there's some rhinoceros shit in there too. Lousy sex that has no prospect of getting better is a perfectly legitimate reason to end a relationship. Falling in love with someone who is not the right long-term partner for you is a part of life here on the third rock from the sun. It's a risk you take when you walk out of your house in the morning, just like getting hit by a meteor. It's something plenty of us have had to deal with. Your outburst the other day was the dam breaking on your sexual frustration, and one way or another, this is the time that you have to do something about it. Getting this guy out from under the sexual dark age would be a project. You have to decide if you're up for it or if his attitude towards you has poisoned things to the point that the relationship can't recover. I know what it's like to be accused of cheating when you're not, and it's a really shitty feeling. As a note to everyone within the sound of my voice, do not accuse a playmate of cheating on you unless you are damn sure that they're actually doing it. And false accusations are especially detrimental over a long period of time. You will get the absolutely predictable result that Addie's man has. You'll be with someone who starts thinking that if they're going to do the time, they might as well do the crime. Mistrust will poison any relationship, and accusations of cheating are the most profound way you can make someone feel like you don't trust them. I mean, it sounds obvious when you say it out loud. If they're not cheating and you won't let it go, they'll end up cheating eventually, and they'll do it feeling like they're evening the score because of what you've already forced them to go through, unless the relationship falls apart before they get to it. Feeling like you're constantly under suspicion is just a shitty way to live. Nobody should be expected to put up with it long term. So, Addie, I definitely sympathize with you, and if you're about ready to cheat on this guy, you've already got one foot out the door. The key here is whether or not you're ever going to have a satisfying sex life with this guy. My advice would be that it's time for the serious conversation about making sex better, and if he refuses to have the conversation with you, you've already got your answer. I'd suggest getting him in a good frame of mind by going out and doing something outside the bedroom that you both enjoy, then sit him down for the talk. If you want to use this show to help you out, tell him that he needs to listen to and understand episodes 3 and 12. At least. If your sexual satisfaction isn't worth an hour or so of his time, that's your answer. If he takes the time to listen, the conversation you have with him afterwards will tell you if it's time to throw this one back and keep on fishing. If you do go that route, try to make sure you're upfront and assertive about your needs from the beginning with the next guy, whoever he might be. A genuine cocksmith will take a woman's disappointing sexual history as a hero's challenge, and that is the guy that you want on the case. We now have Shara joining us to talk about today's listener mail topics. How you doing, baby?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. Started the day with a smile today.
So did I. Thank you very much.
Yeah, wet pussy crawled into bed with me, instead of just the furry pussies that are always in bed with me. And by that, I mean the cats.
It was a great day. It was a great weekend.
It truly was. This is going to be a reasonably quick listener mail episode, but we do have a few topics to talk about. Let's start with the last thing that I talked about, which was Addie's little landmine with her boyfriend. From a woman's perspective, well, especially from, the perspective of a woman who has plenty of orgasms, do you have any insight you'd like to share with Addie?
Yes. The first thing is I believe that honesty is the best policy in any of this situation. So the first thing is I think that her wanting to be honest was great. I agree with her that perhaps how she handled it wasn't the best, but I think we've all been in that situation from time to time. So for that standpoint, it's that part is done and over with. You can't really take that part back, other than to apologize for the approach. But a couple of things is, from what I understand, they were together or have been living together for at least 3 years.
Well,
correct?
They've been together for 3 years. We don't know how long they've been living together.
Okay. So when you're living together, it's not easy to necessarily to just get up and leave and things like that. But it sounds like there's some definite issues there. She should be satisfied during sex. And
right.
That's number one.
Well, and there are options. I mean, like if they have a second floor apartment, she could throw all his shit out the window. That'd provide some closure.
That's true. That's true. It could also cause more problems. So.
She could also put a sign on the window, after she does it all, put a sign on the window before she closes it that says, "Help wanted, man who can find G-spot." Or man who can find clitoris, more appropriately.
Well, one thing that came to mind when I was talking with you about it, and then I walked away and was thinking about it, was, didn't you have a woman that wouldn't hold still? You had difficulty with her because she just wouldn't hold still. And I'm not saying that Addie's not doing
that. I think I mentioned that on an episode. Yeah, I mean, every time I was, shouldn't say every time. I mean, there really was the only one time because I was so annoyed when I was done, I didn't ever want back in her pants. But, yeah, I was going down on her and she was on my couch and I was on the floor in front of the couch. And every time I just about got her off, she would arch her back. And that would twist her pelvis and jam her pussy down into the couch so my face couldn't reach it anymore.
Right.
And then she would back right off of the orgasm. So that was pretty frustrating. And that was, I'm sure she wasn't intentionally doing it. I've never known women to run screaming away from orgasms when they're right there, but it was extremely frustrating.
And so not that Addie's doing that, but I just wanted to bring that to her attention because it's a possibility because she said she was almost there. And I've noticed a couple times when you were going down on me, I was getting so excited that I kind of moved. And, of course, I still came because I just don't have that problem. Right,
well, I'll just either put a pillow under your ass or just strap you to the bed so you can't do that. I mean, I have solutions.
But that being said, there still seems to be another issue there with Addie and her relationship, and that's the fact that she basically feels like he doesn't give a shit.
Right.
So,
and that's kind of the central point. I always stop short of telling someone that they need to end their relationship unless there's something very clear happening there.
Right.
And I'm only stopping a little bit short on this one because it is clear something's going on to make her feel all this frustration.
Correct. And I'm with you. If I feel like there's nothing there in the relationship, time to call it a day. Or if you're having difficulty in a relationship and you're talking to the other person about it, there might be a way to work things out and turn out to be even better. And I've had some friends in my Pink Mafia group that have been able to make their relationship become even better than it was before. But it took both people working at the relationship. If you don't have the other person working at it, doesn't care about it, then you have to decide, do I want to stay in this relationship and be miserable, or do I want to move on and have a happy life? Because for me, life is too short, and I want to live it happy.
Life's way too short for low-grade cock. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. Darn it.
Now, I did move that a little bit farther away from the microphone, but I still got a little bit of a peak, so we'll put it a little farther away from the microphone even. Can I get another blush so I can ring the bell again?
No. Oh, darn it.
All right.
Okay.
I think that's about right. Yeah, so my conclusion was that might be it's probably appropriate to give this guy one more chance, but he's got to get sat down and get the talking to.
Right.
The sex situation's got to get better if the relationship's going to continue.
Right. It's imperative to have the sit down talk to, because otherwise, not even worth going on, because he's obviously already beyond that point.
Next up on our list of things to discuss with you, we have facial cum shots.
I could tell by that smile on your face. Okay.
All right.
Let's move forward.
So, as you read, Nikki was just looking for an explanation of why guys like blowing loads on women's faces so much. So I went through, the basic explanations, and I mean, that covers most of it. Mm-hmm. Now, as a woman who enjoys having a nice sticky load blown all over your face, what would you have to say from the perspective of a woman who enjoys it?
Okay. I would say that it's a couple things for women. Some women enjoy it because they know that it's pleasing their man, and so that's a turn on for them if they know that they're, it's something that pleases their man. And the other thing that I would say is some women just really like the feeling of having it done to them. And you mentioned it as being part of a porn star type feeling.
Right.
For me, with you, it's a little bit of knowing that I'm pleasing you and having that little bit of me that's not what you see every day during the day through my regular daily life, but behind closed doors, just you and I, it's like a really hot moment.
So it's like an especially slutty release that you can do behind closed doors, so you get a little bit of extra satisfaction out of that.
Exactly. And there's a lot of us out there that do that and enjoy that moment. And I'm one of them that really believes in, happy moments for yourself, and it does that for me. Well,
and I think that actually that whole concept is kind of part of the misunderstanding of the undertones of female sexuality.
I agree.
All women want to feel like sluts, just not all the time. In the right situation, with the right playmate, yes, they like to feel like sluts. But not walking down the street every day.
And one of the things that you also mentioned, and I might have the wording a little bit off, but I'm going to use kink.com as an example. It really does kind of turn me on when I watch not necessarily the facial loads going all over somebody. I mean, that does turn me on, but more important was the part that you mentioned about the cream pie, the jizz coming out of one of those.
Do you?
Oh yeah, that's a turn on for me. Yes, that's a turn on for me. So I'm not sure why, but it is.
Maybe because you gotta get a sham wow every time I pull out of you.
I'm talking about seeing it being done on somebody else.
Well, sure.
Okay, so next subject. Okay. I'm going to keep you in focus here. Next.
Next, we have ATXMI brought up laser hair removal, which I'm kind of ashamed of myself for spacing out on that when I was talking about, ways to remove pubic hair. Obviously, that is a more expensive route that does have much longer lasting results, and according to ATX, much better results.
It actually was very interesting for me as well, because I didn't think about it either. Probably because when we were reading it, a lot of one of the people that had mentioned it in an email to you didn't really have the funding. So I think we focused on.
Somebody had thought about it, but had not actually had it done. So we really didn't have any feedback from anyone, with the full pelvic burn from a big laser.
Right. So I did a little bit of research myself, and I left a couple of the sites up for you to look at. One of them is actually a forum that talks about it, and they talk about the price being, I believe it was $400 to $500 per session. Now, I did not get to the point.
Okay, so that's going to ramp up pretty quick then, because ATX was saying she's looking at basically 6 sessions. She had 3 down, 3 to go. So
But
you do
maybe
have
she
to have
could-
a fairly deep wallet to get into that.
Maybe she could write back and let us know if, she found that it didn't take as many sessions or it wasn't that expensive. And if it's a reputable place, then we could list it on our site for people that are
Sure.
in her area to look at. So that's one of the things that I didn't have a chance to do a lot of research on yet because that had just come in. So I'll do a little bit more research and see what I can find. But what I was finding on most of the sites that I did research on was the typical amount was $400 to $500 for the laser. And it might be less expensive, but I'm looking for our listeners. Of course, when we post sites up, I want to make sure that they're reputable.
Sure.
And you do as well. So, so she might be able to share us more information, and if so, we'd greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, if it was cheap enough, I repeat what I said earlier, I would force myself to get over the just horrible picture in my head of, because I'm a guy.
I know. It's horrible for guys to always worry about those things, isn't it?
Like many guys, I'm kind of a science fiction, blow shit up, shoot 'em up kind of thing. So even though I work with lasers for cutting metal and all kinds of other stuff, the concept of having lasers, well, maybe especially because I work with lasers and I see lasers cut through a 1/2 inch of steel plate. Maybe I'm having a special aversion to having one pointed at my balls. Of course, it's a totally different kind of laser, but still, the connection's there.
Yes, I just think you're letting it cross over, and it's not like that because everything I've read is basically
I'm sure it's
painless.
I'm sure it's not that bad. Yeah, it's just this is totally a fabrication of my own head. I understand that.
They talk about a Brazilian waxing being painful and electrolysis being painful, which I know that is true. I do not really see that on lasers, so I'd be interested in hearing from people who've had it done. Because everyone's different. Some might be painful, some might have no pain. I'd be interested in hearing back from people about that.
Yeah, so anybody who wants to give some feedback, ATX, keep us up with the continuing saga of your nice, smooth pussy lips. And,
and congratulations, and thank you for making me think about me getting it done. I'm definitely saving up for that now.
Yeah, but anybody else who wants to talk about, how many sessions it took them to get the job done, or healing time, or really whatever experiences, let's talk about sex.
Sounds good.
And lastly, we have bad vibrators. I wasn't even trying on that one.
I know. Okay.
So what I was talking about regarding good and bad materials to have sex toys made out of, obviously that was a follow-up on some things that we had discussed on episode 16 regarding colors leaching out of sex toys. Kind of a general call for information that we put out there that Kidder was kind enough to answer.
Yes, thank you very much.
And then I have talked to you already about considering creating a line of actual surgical grade sex toys.
Yes, well, since you've already done sex toys, I thought it would be a really great idea for our listeners to be able to go to a shop that we could refer them to that we know would be great. So I thought if we could put a little shopping place up there for people to go and get some toys.
If I get past the prototyping process and it looks like I got good stuff that's viable in the marketplace, I'll be pimping it all over the place on the show.
Because I really did not see, I did a couple searches and I'd like you to check them out. I did not really see anything about surgical stainless. There were a few, but as you and I both know, there's a process that should be done with surgical stainless, and I'm not sure because of the price that they're selling it at that those are being done.
Yes, I know the site you're talking about.
Okay.
They use 316L stainless steel, which is of course the right stainless, but any company is only as good as their word. I could probably find out with a phone call whether they're doing the proper post-machining treatments to actually make the stuff surgical grade.
Would you do that?
I think I will. And maybe
okay.
I'll report it on that for the next listener mail.
That would be great.
Or at the very least, the next time I'm talking about stainless steel sex toys, because the next time will probably be when I have one for you to try.
Okay. Next.
But now, not everybody we've never really talked about stainless toys specifically on the show. As someone who has used quite a few of them, because, well, I make them. What is your experience of the stainless toys in comparison to, say, regular plastic toys? I know the ones I do are mirror polished, which means they are very, very smooth and need almost no lubrication.
Correct. I actually, a couple times I've watched, gone to the kink.com site and didn't need any lubrication at all. on the toy. So basically, I really don't. But I'm one of those fortunate women that is wet often. So a couple things. One, the toys, obviously, because they're stainless steel, surgical grade, they're cold. Even if it's warm outside, they can tend to have a little bit of coldness to them.
Right.
That's
They'll
easy
always
to-
be room temperature, and if you're playing with them, very likely you're going to want to have like a dish of warm water
Exactly.
to warm them up with.
Exactly. But the thing that I liked about it was I liked knowing that it was safe, because the plastic toys, I'm really not sure. There's so many, toys out there for kids as an example that you find out later on, they've had all these, issues with these kids' toys. Well, this is going inside of my body.
Right.
So,
Well, lead paint, horrible shit made in China. That sometimes if it comes out of the wrong factory, I mean, there is plenty of good stuff made in China, but some things are just the victims of non-existent quality control.
it's a question of how do you know whether it's good or bad? And I like
Right.
knowing-
Well, and if you're buying a $2 butt plug, you gotta wonder. I don't know
Right.
if I'd want a $2 butt plug.
But I'm not. I mean, some
Not even to
people-
use on you.
I'm saying though that some people may actually be spending a lot of money for these toys, thinking that they're safe, and
That's an excellent point as well.
and they're not safe. I like the fact knowing that stainless steel going inside of me is safe, and of course you're making them for me, so I know that they're safe. But I want people to know that they can go somewhere safe and get these toys and feel comfortable playing with them, knowing that they're safe. The thing about the stainless steel is obviously they're not ones that are going to vibrate and things like that. So
Well, we might be able to do something about
really,
that.
well, that would be great.
We just might be able to do some surgical grade stainless steel vibrators. I'm researching the electrical components as we speak to see what I would have to do with those.
Well, now you just made my day.
I can see that.
Okay, but it was a good blush for everybody. It was a really good blush. It was worth it.
Yeah, and to reinforce something I did mention earlier, I'm a big believer in informed consent and in understanding exactly what you're buying. I don't want to imply that sex toys made out of 304 stainless are somehow real hazardous.
Right.
They are not surgical grade, and it's important to make that distinction. Your chance of having a problem with them is not non-existent. It's not ridiculously high. But a lot of people have this picture, because they don't work with the stuff every day, that stainless steel in and of itself, anything you might call stainless steel, is some kind of totally corrosion-proof substance. It can be, but only the right stainless that's treated the right way.
Correct.
So it's not very corrosive, but say a 304 stainless dildo that's polished up in a beautiful mirror, you leave that thing sitting in a tub of water, or some soapy water for a couple of weeks, you're going to see some rust start to form on it.
Right.
Start to form on it, because that is just the nature of 304 stainless steel.
Right. And the surgical grade still, while people who know in the metal industry know that surgical stainless is obviously a higher grade and less worrisome, there's still the process that's important. And when I went to these sites that you're going to check out for me, I didn't see, it doesn't tell you whether the process was done or not.
Right, and that makes me suspect that it's probably not, because the cost of the processing is not ridiculous, but it's also not insignificant.
Right.
So if you were spending the money on it, if I get all this together and I'm spending the money on the passivation, electropolishing, the other things that need to be done to it, I'm going to advertise that.
Right.
Because I need it to be a selling point, because it's raising the cost of my product.
Right.
So I need to educate the consumer and make sure that they understand that they're buying something that's built to a higher standard.
Right. And I think that that's important. And for me, I'd rather spend the money if it's a little bit more. But the one site that I was checking out wasn't exactly cheap, but it wasn't extremely expensive. But it was low enough that it made me wonder, was this process done? So I know you'll check it out for me and let me know.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at. I was seeing some fairly low pricing on that site, and then I picture, because I understand how industry works, that people selling those things are probably paying somewhere between 50 to 70% of their retail price to buy them, which means the manufacturer has to be probably making them for half of what they're getting sold for, and I know what the material costs.
Exactly.
So even if they're being truthful and saying, we're using this 316L stainless material, I don't see where they've gotten the extra money to actually bring it to surgical grade.
Exactly. So for me, I'd prefer to make sure that I have that, and I'd like to offer that out there if we can make that happen. for those listeners out there that would, that have the money and want to spend it. I just like knowing that it's available to me. And of course, I'm very lucky that you make those.
You should see your face right now.
I'm happy.
Okay, well, that concludes the topics for this listener mail. Do you have anything else you'd like to say to the audience about anything?
I do. I just want to say happy birthday to Belinda. It's early because it's tomorrow, so I hope you have a great birthday. She's been an avid listener of ours, and I just wanted to say happy birthday. And also we have another one because I don't know if we'll be talking before next Saturday. Heather also has a birthday, and so happy birthday. And that's it.
This is a perfect example of one of those things that would never get done if it wasn't for women in the world. Remembering to say happy birthday to people.
Well, it's pretty easy because both of them often say things about our podcasts. In fact, Heather made a cute little comment that I caught about wearing collars, and so that was kind of nice. Thank you, Heather, for that.
Oh, I must have missed that one.
Oh, did you? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I kind of chuckled at it. So thank you,
you'll have
Heather.
to bring it up for me.
I will. So thank you very much, both of you, for always listening, and I just hope you both have a great birthday.
Thank you for joining me, baby. And
Thank you.
We will get back to this next week.
All right. Bye.
And that brings episode 18 to a close, and I thank you all for listening. Please feel free to join in the conversation by posting totally anonymously on sexualdarkage.com, emailing jvaltheras@gmail.com, or calling into the listener line at 517-376-3116. Shara and I can be found on Facebook and Twitter through links on sexualdarkage.com, and if you have iTunes, please take the time to give me a good rating or review to help boost our position in iTunes and get the show out in front of more people. Until next time, this be me, JV Altheras, reminding you that sex is one of the greatest things in life, and there is always room for better.